Israel has defied its US ally by giving the go-ahead for 3,000 new settler homes in the occupied West Bank. It's the first construction to be approved by the new Israeli coalition that some had hoped would move away from the expansion policies of the previous government. The latest construction plans have been strongly criticised by the Biden administration.
They dot the West Bank like a dense archipelago. 700,000 Israelis already live in settlements in the Palestinian territories, illegally, according to most of the international community. On Wednesday, 3,000 additional settler homes were approved by the government of Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, according to activists.
Now everybody knows that this is not a government of change, but this is a government with the same policy as Netanyahu, to build more in settlements, to deepen the occupation, and to take us away from the chances for peace.
It's the first new approval by the new Israeli coalition government. It's also the first during the Biden administration, which has made its opposition to further settlements clear. The Palestinian Authority was quick to condemn the latest seizure of land it hopes will one day be the basis of an independent Palestinian state.
This is nothing but a declaration of war. It's clear that Israel is intending intentionally to damage the will and wish of the Palestinian people and their aspiration. It is the time for the international community to move from words to deeds and to express its views by doing and not only by condemning. It's also evident that the Israeli government is implementing the so-called Trump plan, and the Biden administration is almost absent.
During the Trump presidency, the construction of settlements was ramped up dramatically. The Palestinians now have little reason to believe that Israel will change course.
I'm joined now by correspondent Sami Sokol in Jerusalem. Sami, the US has sharply condemned the new settlements. Why then is Israel going ahead with them anyway?
Well, I would say that we're back to business as usual. Israel has been building settlements in the West Bank for decades now. And the State Department, the administration have always criticized, have always said that this settlement construction is not helpful. And Israel continued with this settlement project. And what we've seen is that during the Trump administration, suddenly there was a change in policy in the U.S. administration in which there were no more condemnations. We didn't hear this kind of language. We had an ambassador here who was supportive of the settlement project. So we're back to the old policy in which the Americans and others will be condemning these steps, and Israel will be continuing building settlements and expanding them. And it is very clear that this government headed by Naftali Bennett is going to continue and intensify the settlements.
What will this decision mean then for the relationship between Israelis and the Palestinians, given recent tensions?
Well, you know, Naftali Bennett is very familiar here. He was the head of the Yesha Council, the Council of the Settlements. He was the CEO. So there were no expectations from the Palestinians that he would bring an end to settlement expansion. The Ministry of Housing, he is a hard right-winger who was in the Likud, Zev Elkin, and he earlier this week also announced the construction of more than 1,300 housing units. So I think that the expectations are very low. Israel on its side, it's saying that it's going to approve the building of housing units for Palestinians. That means it won't build them, but it will let them also build houses. And it says that it will make life easier for Palestinians. But in terms of political progress, there's no expectation. And in fact, this is going to undermine Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, the head of the PA, and this will weaken his popularity, which is already very weak.
Sam, how do these settlements affect Palestinians living in the West Bank?
Well, you know, we're just now in the midst of the olive picking season. And what we see is that in the areas where settlements are expanding, Palestinians who own olive trees, they have difficulty in accessing their land. We see that settlements expand on Palestinian land, and in some cases this causes a real disruption of life, like in Hebron. There's also a plan to build housing units in the heart of the city of Hebron. In other places, people will tell you, well, it's just more of the same.
Sami Sokol in Jerusalem. Thank you.